Hello, and welcome to Crafting a Revolution, the podcast. My name is Katie Freeman, and I'm one of your hosts. Every week, we bring you interviews of makers of all kinds from all over the world that either identify as female or non-binary. Today's guest is Rosi of the Polilla Cooperative in Mexico. Rosi and Annikki work together as Polilla Cooperative, an artisanal carpentry business in Mexico. They have found in carpentry, a trade traditionally viewed as a male practice, that as queer women, their access to the profession is limited. They have also faced things like sexualization, harassment, and being treated as less capable, restricted to a secondary status. Through their experiences of trying to learn while being treated as outsiders, they decided they wanted to build a collaborative learning space in which women and members of the queer community feel safe and can create a kinder working environment of equity between all participants. It was great getting to chat with Rosi. Annikki wasn't available during our interview, but chatting with Rosi and understanding her journey and then the journey as a cooperative as a whole was just a great opportunity. Before we hop into the interview, though, with Rosi, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Candace at CJ Woodgrain, Lee Runyon at Lee Runyon, Annette 513 Woodworks, Katie Thompson, Women of Woodworking, Kevin Lefty's Woodshop, Christy Twisted Twine, Jeremy Spies, Sammy Go Sammy Lee, Rachel Moody Makes, Bonnie Toolmom Bonnie, ToolmomStore.com, Laura Oakley Soap Company, Brandy Studio Obey, Lee the Rainbow Carver, Ellen Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you all so very much for your continued ongoing support, helping to produce the podcast every week. If you are enjoying the podcast and would like to help support as well, please hang around to the end of the episode and I will tell you how. For now, let's head on into the conversation with Rosi of Polilla Cooperative. I like to start by asking my guests to introduce themselves. So would you do that for me?
Yeah. Okay, so my name is Rosi, Rosi Martin, and I am one half of Polilla Cooperativa. The other half is Annikki, who couldn't be part of the podcast today, but yeah.
Okay. And I also like to ask, what are your pronouns?
My pronouns are she, they.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I'm gonna, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So you clearly speak Spanish well, but you do not have a Spanish accent. So are you from there?
I am British, born and raised British from the UK. I moved to Mexico about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And previously to living in Mexico, I lived in Spain for about 6 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, I spent most of my adult life speaking Spanish, but I am British.
Okay. I was assuming, but that it was something like that.
Yeah.
What brought you personally to Mexico?
To Mexico, it was a carpentry project.
Okay.
Really, what brought me to Oaxaca in the beginning. At that point, I'd just done a carpentry, like a woodworking course in Spain, where I was living at the time. And I met a woman who had a friend in Oaxaca, and she was like, well, so my friend's got this woodworking project, and it's a carpentry school that works with kids from indigenous communities. And honestly, at the time, it was just like, I traveled a lot and that kind of thing. So it was just like a good excuse to travel and have something to like a goal, like when I arrived, something to get to know. So I kind of came originally to get to know that project, ended up working in the project for about a year, and then just rolled with the times, and and I've been in Oaxaca since.
Did that school become the current place?
No, that project eventually it closed. I think it had been going for a couple of years before I arrived, and then kind of closed just before I left. So yeah, it's not going. Yeah.
So can you pronounce it again?
Polilla.
Polilla?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Polilla. Yeah.
Polilla. Okay. Because I don't want to mess it up. So what's the backstory behind Polilla?
Polilla. Okay. So Polilla Cooperativa. I'm going to get confused now with some Spanglish, but Polilla Cooperativa started just over a year ago, officially, through working with Annikki. So I met Annikki again, like maybe I'd say about 3 years ago. Okay. And when we met, they asked if I could give them woodworking classes. They heard about me doing woodwork, and they were like, oh, that's so cool. And they thought that's something I wanted to do for a while. And so at some point they asked if I could show them woodworking. And so that was maybe 2.5 years ago. And so they would just come to the workshop occasionally and help out, and I would show them like little things. And we were kind of working together very informally for about 1.5 years.
Okay.
I think, the first project they did was they built like a dog house for their dog, kind of thing. Like, it was all very informal. And after a while, it was, they started to help me out with like small jobs in the workshop. I was like, okay, so maybe you could help me with this specific job and stuff like that. And then at one point it was like, okay, well, how can we kind of formalize a bit more the relationship and work out a way that we can work together, but it's not necessarily this like kind of hierarchy of I'm the boss and you're the helper kind of thing. Like, I think both of us are very interested in trying to work in a kind of more level-rounded environment, So, there is a part where I am the person with more experience, but there's so much that Annikki has brought to the workshop since being part of the workshop that, we've achieved so much that I wouldn't have been able to do alone. It just feels right being on like more of this kind of level ground.
Are you guys doing like projects for clients? Are you teaching? Are you doing like kind of all of that?
Okay, so there's a lot of things that we're doing, and there's a lot of things that we want to do. So part of the vision of the cooperative is to give workshops to the women and the queer community in Oaxaca. That's definitely one of the objectives of the workshop, and we started a fundraiser to help us with that last year. But at the same time, we are just building our workshop. So I think 1 year ago, like I was living in a house, and it was basically just 1 bedroom of the house where I would do the jobs, and it was becoming too small. So with Annikki, when we started the cooperative, let's find a slightly bigger space. So we built a roof, we put up roofing, built walls, we've been building workbenches and all of these things. What else do we do? We do take on jobs at the same time. So we work, most of our work is commission based. Probably like 95% of our work is commission based. So we're kind of juggling a lot of balls at once, building the workshop, trying to set it up, doing commissions, trying to offer like a reasonably good service to the customers.
Mhm.
And at the same time, we do have this vision of wanting to give workshops.
Yep.
We haven't quite got there yet. Like the
Mhm.
workshop, it is in process. And we started, like I said, we started a fundraiser about a year ago. And part of the fundraiser was directed towards the workshop and being able to build all the stuff that we've built in the past year. And the other part of the fundraiser, the objective was to give workshops, but we've kind of got stuck in the middle because the fundraiser, well, you know, it's a lot of work doing a fundraiser as well. You know, of the many balls we've been juggling, the fundraiser was another one of them. So it's a little bit stuck, but we're kind of looking into different things at this point. We're looking into grants. We're looking into grants to hopefully be able to get the funds to buy tools to give workshops.
Okay.
And it's the next.
Is the fundraiser still like out there, like in your link in your bio and all that?
Yeah.
Stuff? Okay.
The fundraiser is still active. It's still out there. We are not as active at the minute on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, it's another one of the many balls we're juggling, and it just kind of often gets left behind.
Mm-hmm.
But the fundraiser is still out there. We're still working really hard to build up the workshop and offer workshops in the hopefully near future.
I'll definitely make sure to include the link to specifically to the fundraiser for the show notes for the episode.
Yeah.
How did you get into like woodworking and carpentry?
How did I get into woodworking and carpentry? So it started a long time ago. I think I've always been more of a manual person. Like when I was in school, I didn't study very much and that kind of stuff, like, you know, books and the academic side of life was definitely not my thing. So I remember when I left school, I was like, I don't want to go back into school until I know what my thing is, like what I'm good at. And at one point I started traveling, and as I was traveling, I just started doing like, you know, I traveled with like a carving knife. So I just started doing like little bits of sculpture, and I was working on avocado seeds and just like really simple stuff. And just that contact with the material, the avocado seeds, or just like little bits of wood, it really caught my attention. And I was like, okay, I like this. And then a bit later on, I started living in a farm, kind of like a community farm. Mm-hmm. And there were little building projects on the farm, like there was a tree house build. Mm-hmm. There was, what do you call them? I can't, my English is a bit rusty. So it's like like the houses that they make out of hay. Like eco-construction stuff.
Yeah, I can't think of the name for it right now either, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So
it was there getting involved in like little projects like that. And at one point I was like, you know what, maybe one day I'd like to be able to build my own house. And then when I had that thought, it was like, okay, well, if I could learn how to build a table, I could learn how to build a house. And so that was like the kind of spark that set me up to look for woodworking schools. And I ended up in a woodworking school in the north of Spain, in Asturias.
Okay. Yeah. I'm assuming you learned how to build the table.
Yeah, I learned how to build the table. Still working on how to build a house, but.
Well, you're probably getting some practice with that just with building out the shop, because I have seen the little bit that you guys have posted on Instagram, like some of the projects you've been doing. Like there's a lot of work going into that. Today's episode is sponsored by Athena Outfitters. Athena Outfitters is a quality workwear brand for hardworking women that sells everything badass beauties need to get the job done, from work boots to basics. They curate the toughest essentials made to help you perform. Every piece is handpicked to seamlessly slide right into your daily lifestyle, from rugged and roguish weekday wear to effortless weekend flair. you can fill your closet with gear that can do it all. So for Christmas, I ordered my wife like a very nice pair of slippers from Athena Outfitters, and she loves them. Loves them so much that she has accidentally gone to the gym and the grocery store in them because they seem to never leave her feet. So definitely a place to go check out, go get the goods that help you not only out in the shop, but just in your daily work around the house and outdoors. As a listener of the podcast, you can go to Athena Outfitters website and use coupon code M as in M&Ms 15 for 15% off any purchase. So again, you go to athenaoutfitters.com and use the code MM15 and get 15% off of your purchase at checkout.
It's been a learning curve, like definitely, like neither me or Annikki have any experience with the building stuff we've done. So it's just kind of like really been like working out, okay, how do we do this? Is it going to be safe? We had a couple of earthquakes in the past couple of weeks in Oaxaca, and the roof is still strong. So it's like, okay, yeah,
good job. Yeah,
we're doing something right.
Yeah. So I know, like, again, because I've followed you guys on Instagram, and I've seen some of your posts about wanting to do the workshops and, the reason kind of for setting up that space is that brings up kind of two questions for me. If 95% of what you do is like commission projects, I'm curious for the region you're in, do you receive any kind of like when it's you two showing up to do the work? Is there a little bit of I don't know, a cultural barrier, I guess, there?
I mean, definitely. Yeah. I think there's a certain barrier that you're going to find in most parts that's here. But honestly, like, we are very supported by our community. So most of the commissions that we receive, I'm going to say 99.9% of the commissions we receive are from women or people of the queer or sexo. Here we call it sexodisidente.
Okay.
Part of that community. So again, like you still like, even with women, you'll get women going, "Oh, really? So you're a carpenter?" And like, that kind of surprise. But then for them, that's something that's like really cool. And they're like, so we get a lot of work through that of saying how, that's really great. There's women carpenters, and a lot of the women that we've worked with have said that they would much prefer a female or queer person going to their house than
feel safer about it.
They feel kind of more secure about it. So.
Yeah. I feel like that's like actually very similar, like in the States. I've heard that for people, like, I don't live in a big enough city that has the app TaskRabbit, but that's like, the app for like to find a handy person to come do stuff at your home. And I've heard a lot that if you're a woman using that app to find work, like, you get booked a lot because other women feel more secure and safe inviting like a strange woman into their place to do work versus a strange man into their place to do work.
100%.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's great that the community is supportive. Is that, like, besides what you guys are trying to do for workshops, are there other like woodworking workshops in the area that people are just not feeling safe to go into?
In what sense?
Well, like because you guys are aimed at serving kind of the like women and queer community. So are there workshops out there, woodworking classes out there currently in your area that group of people, women and people from the queer community, don't feel safe going into?
I don't know. I that's a hard question for me to answer. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm gonna have to answer on like from what I can perceive, from where I stand as part of this community. For me, I wouldn't say it's so much a question of safety, but there's definitely a lot of, like as a woman going to a workshop, even me, like so in our workshop, it's still very small. The tools that we bought new machinery because of the fundraiser, but they're still very small. So occasionally we go to other workshops and we ask for, what do you call it in English, for them to like join pieces on their joiner.
Oh, the joiner.
Like,
yes. Yeah.
Do you like, because they have like bigger machinery, so sometimes we'll take it and I go there, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm asking for, and I'll approach them and I say, I need this and I need this and I need this, and I don't know how to express it. It's just the way that they minimize the knowledge that you have. And so I feel like so many women here or queer people will want to approach a workshop having an idea more or less of what they want, and then they'll get there and the guy will just be like, no, you don't want that. You don't want that, you want this. So it's just like this kind of minimization. So in that sense, like there's a lack of security in knowing what you want and knowing how to achieve it, for sure. I don't know if I could say like people feeling unsafe about going to a workshop.
Right, but no, I think I completely understand. I would say, again, pretty similar experience here of maybe not necessarily. Well, yeah, it would be going into workshops if there's men in the space. They tend to, like, I would say, like in maker spaces here, which are like kind of, cooperative shop spaces. Like if I walk in there and I'm using tools that I know how to use, have used for a very long time, if the shop is filled with men, they're more likely to come up and try to correct what I am doing, where I don't need correction. Like I am perfectly capable to do what I need to do in that space. And then the same of like, if we're going to like a hardware store or a lumber store, where the first question, where it's not like, well, how can we help you? And then you say, and then they're like, well, wait, what are you working on? As if they need to correct what we're asking for.
It's like this constant seed of doubt.
Yes.
They're capable of doing what we're there to do, kind of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I totally understand that. I mean, I feel it's the same here. That's why there are places here that are like all female, or like gender non-binary, like spaces. More of those spaces are popping up in the US for that reason. Like it's like we need to create, and I would say it's still kind of safe space in the sense of like safety of like trusting yourself, because you also, like, it's dangerous if somebody starts to doubt you and you allow that to make you doubt yourself. Like,
absolutely,
if you start doubting yourself and how to use a tool, that can be dangerous. Like, so I would say I would still call it like a safe space in that
absolutely
way.
That's like, I mean, I think for us, for me and Annikki, that's part of what Polilla Cooperative has been about, is creating that safe space that we can learn in and work together in, and it is very much about this kind of experimenting with each other and the knowledge that we have and the things that we can share, and being allowed to do that, being allowed to make mistakes, and and whatever. Just very much like this space of experimenting. Because I mean, for me, it's very new being a teacher in that way, in that consistent way. because I've given small workshops here and there, but like having
Yep.
teaching someone long term is a very different
Right.
experience. And Annikki, one of their major issues of like wanting to learn about carpentry and woodwork, and having worked in a couple of workshops here and there in different parts of Mexico, was very much that feeling of just not of being doubted all the time, and not being able to just feel comfortable and relaxed in the spaces that we're working in. So yeah, I mean, Polilla for us is very much about just like having this safe space.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've ended up with something similar. I started just like a club, a once a month club for woodworking. I initially put it out into my local area just to see if there was other like female or members of the queer community who like do woodworking and would like to like meet up and geek out about tools, because that's really what I want to be able to do. It's just like kind of have that creative spark of like bouncing ideas off each other, stuff like that. And really what I got in response was an overwhelming amount of women and members of the queer community that want to learn how to woodwork, that like they don't know how, but they want to learn. And so it went from a group of peers to teacher, is where my role went to. And at first I was a little bit kind of like, oh man, I just wanted something like to be able to just like go and hang out and not have to be like responsible. But it's actually been immensely, like, it's been lovely, teaching this group of people to like use tools, and watch them go from like extremely like timid and nervous when they're touching the tool for the first time, with my guidance, to, by the end of our 2-hour meeting, they're like, oh, we feel badass. And that's just like, I think it's something to witness that. Like, I feel honored to be able to be the person who just gets to watch that happen for them. And watch them leave feeling so confident.
Yeah. I get that feeling. I've given a couple of workshops, like, well, through the pandemic, I've given a few online workshops, which has been kind of weird experience of like, okay, how do we make this happen? And then last year, towards the end of last year, I was asked to give a weekly workshop. So kind of outside of Polilla, I am giving a weekly workshop, and it's such a nice experience and feeling to be able to kind of share that stuff with this group of women. And they're just like, like getting the kind of comments like, I've been in other workshops, or I've been in other spaces, or I asked my husband to show me how to use the saw, and I just felt really stupid and clumsy. And being able to offer a space where you can be stupid and clumsy, and it's okay, right? We'll work through that, right? We're all clumsy sometimes.
Well, there's just a difference, I think, there's a difference in the approach, and I want to say, like, I do want to give credit. Like, I went through woodworking classes, and everyone was a male teacher except for one. And they were lovely. Like, there's still one that I keep in close contact with. I will forever. Like, he's one of my favorite people. But I think it was like his demeanor in how he approached like teaching tools specifically. Whereas like I've seen other men who are extremely lovely individuals, just, I feel like they approach it in a manner that puts them in, they're seen as in power, versus like, I'm sharing this information with you and it's a safety thing. It's not about like, I know this and you can't know this type of vibe. It's more of a like, this is how we're going to hold it so that you don't cut your fingers off. This is how, like, and I think there's something about that approach. And I've taken that approach when I've been like teaching this group of women. It's just like, okay, we're going to like these are the things we have to be careful of so that you don't injure yourself. And it's about like showing, and then okay, you're ready to go. Like I'll help you set your hand placement, but otherwise you're going to do this, like, because you have to know you can do this on your own without me doing it for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's about approach and that power dynamic sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just thinking about like how teaching for me has been a learning curve in that sense of, how I approach things, how I, use a certain tool, or what I take into account for safety measures, and learning how to kind of transmit that information and why I'm transmitting that information. And it's like sometimes, I have caught myself, it's like you just hold it like this because you need to hold it like this. And
right.
Like, okay, but why do you need to hold it like this?
Yeah, right.
Okay, there is important information that you need to transmit. Right. So like for me, teaching has been a learning curve in that way, in that sense of like, okay, not and I think this happens a lot in workshops, in male environments. I don't know how to say it in English. There's an expression in Spanish, it's dando las cosas por hechas o por hecho. It's like,
is it like taking for granted that somebody
yes, taking for granted the knowledge that you have or what you've learned.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very, like young men are just kind of
expected to just kind of
expected to just be able to do stuff.
Right.
And I think that's the approach that many of them can take when they're teaching. They'll just kind of expect you to be able to do it. And I've caught myself doing the same thing, just like. So
I will totally admit, like, it was a learning curve for me. And to be honest, it didn't start with this group. It started with, I had somebody who wanted to work kind of just as like an apprentice in the shop, just to kind of sponge off of my knowledge. And I did. And they ended up getting injured in my shop, because I took for granted, I showed them how to use the miter saw, but I didn't go through all of the things. And they got injured. And I mean, I still feel immensely bad about that. Like, it wasn't anything life-threatening, they're still able to work, all that stuff, but it was more than it ever should have been. And I even shared that with like this group of women. I was like, I'm going to tell you my flaws in this, because like, that's the only way to be in this space. And that was also intentional so that they could, I told them, feel comfortable asking me the questions, because sometimes I've done this for so long, I don't think about like all the little, like you said, all the little teeny tiny things that I had to learn along the way. And so it's like, if you're not feeling comfortable when you walk up to that, like, ask me the question. There really is no dumb question. Like, just ask me the question. And I'll walk you through like why to do it this way, or, maybe do it this way type thing. And so I think, I mean, I learned the hard way, and now it's like, that's something that's like in my head. And so it's like, I always have to stop and be like, what are all of the things that I'm doing when I step up to this, to this equipment?
Absolutely.
So I hope for you, nobody ever gets injured, because it's not a fun place.
It's definitely been one of the scariest things working with Annikki, especially when they first started coming to the workshop. Was like, that feeling of responsibility, like showing you how to use these tools, and if it goes wrong, like, I'm responsible for that. So
exactly, that's the way way I felt about it, and hey makers, today's episode is sponsored in part by toolmomstore.com. At toolmomstore.com, you can find any and all tool-based merchandise for all genders, all sizes. They've got mugs, they've got shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. I have one of the shirts myself that has the hashtag woodwork her on it. And I also have a couple of the mugs that define what and who is a tool chick. So super excited with the merchandise that I have. I know that you will be satisfied as well. And also, great discount for those of you who listen to the podcast. At checkout, if you enter the code MAKERMOM, you will get a 20% discount off any of the merchandise that you buy. So that's just toolmomstore.com. All right, let's head back into the action. So it's a learning lesson and it will go with me forever.
Definitely.
And I think it's good because, and then getting practice with these women has made me feel more confident. Like one of the women brings her, her, I don't know, I think she might be 12, like 12-year-old daughter with her, and we're like, okay, you can use the tools too, like as you're comfortable with it. But it's given me more confidence in like, okay, if I'm breaking it down, like all of these steps for the grown-ups, like that makes me feel confident in being able to do it for a younger group of people. Like, because otherwise I was always too nervous. Like even with my own kids at home, I'm like,
Maybe next week.
Yeah. The drill is the most powerful thing they've used so far. So,
yeah.
No,
it's scary. It's daunting. I, like I say, I've been here for 10 years in Oaxaca, and it's only in the past 3 years, well, since Annikki started in the workshop, that I had the courage to give workshops. And for the 7 years previous to that, all of my friends, they were always like, why don't you give workshops? There's so many women, there's so many queer people here who want to learn. Please give us a workshop. And I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't feel ready for that. I don't feel secure enough in my knowledge and experience. And since I've started, it's been a huge part of the learning curve for me. And I start to revise things of like, even now, even if I'm not giving a class and I'm using a tool, I kind of start going through my head of the reasons why I'm doing stuff, and it's helping me to revise more, like my own security and why I'm doing something, and kind of observe my work in a different way that I wasn't necessarily observing before.
Absolutely. What are the kinds of projects that you two are getting commissioned to do?
Kind of, I want to say all sorts, but I'm not sure it's all sorts. It's mostly like furniture, tables, maybe like we had some kitchen furniture. We've just had what do you call it, a desk, and the next project is a dining table. So it's a lot of stuff like home furniture, stuff like this, and then we got a lot of smaller commissions, like someone who just needs like shelving put up and that kind of thing. And then occasionally we'll get a larger project commissioned. I nearly fell off my stool. But yeah, mostly kind of like small bits of furniture here and there.
Do you think that once the kind of the workshop is up and you're starting to get to teach classes, do you think the commission work will always kind of be a part of the business?
I'd like to think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. I don't know how to answer that question. Right now, you've just opened up a world. One thing I would very much like to be able to do, and I think Annikki shares this feeling, is we would very much like to be able to work on more individual, more artistic projects, which is something that I've always struggled with, partly because of motivation and partly just because of economy. And like, if you focus for a few weeks or a month on your own project, then that's a time that you're not earning. So it's really hard to find that balance of like, when is the right time? So that is something I would love to be able to do at some point. And again, Commission work, I guess if the workshops work. I mean, I like taking on commissions. Really, my personal feeling is I very much enjoy the smaller projects like a desk or a table. Like I really enjoy making pieces of furniture that I know are going to get like a lot of daily use, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So like a dining table, people are going to eat at that table every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, there's just something about that feeling of like making a thing for someone and they're going to be using it and it's going to get old and rusty and beaten up. And I like that feeling.
Yeah.
So there is a part of me that definitely like commissions like that. It would be good to always take on, I guess.
Is there a good source of like lumber locally? Like locally sourced?
There is
Okay.
a lot of locally sourced lumber.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few places. I mean, there's if you go out of the city into what they call the La Sierra, which is the mountainous areas, the communities. There's a couple of, what would you call it?
Like sawmills?
Comment? What?
Sawmills?
Sawmills. There's one specific area they run their own sustainable woodland.
Oh, okay.
So they source a lot of the
so they're growing for the growing trees for the purpose of lumber.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Not far from the city. It's like an hour, 2 hours drive from the city.
What's the species of wood available there?
What we work with mostly is pine.
Okay.
Just because it's the economic.
Yep.
Of like what you can offer to the client is the best option is going to be pine. But there are, I'm not going to know their names in English, but there's woods like Guanacaste, which is, or Perota. There are other
a little
woods,
bit, yeah.
But what we use, I think I've rarely worked with any other type of wood.
Okay.
Pine, just because of the economy.
Yeah. Yeah, I asked because I wasn't sure like what type of, depending on different areas of the world, there's different species of lumber available. So it was just my own woodworker geek, like wanting to know like what kind of wood's available there.
I know. I wish I knew more. I wish I knew more about the different types of wood available here. But again, because I don't work with them, yeah, it's not something that's like accessible to me.
Yeah.
But hopefully one day.
How about just the accessibility of like tools? I've had other guests on, depending on the part of the world they're in. Like sometimes, what you see on like Instagram being used in the US or Europe is like just plain not available in other parts of the world. So is that an issue there, like getting actual equipment?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And just like, again, in the economic sense, like the wages that we earn here are very small compared to what you might earn in the States, but where we're buying our tools from is from the States. So we're buying tools in dollars,
yes,
in US dollars, and we're earning in Mexican pesos, which is, part of the reason we did the fundraiser. It's just like, I've been working before working with Annikki, I was working with a handheld circular saw, a little jigsaw, a drill, and like a few hand tools. And I've been working like that for several years.
Yeah.
Just because the availability of what you're earning against what you need to build up your workshop is just, the difference is, it's so a very
big. Yeah.
And there are different tools available. There are different, like if you're more DIY, there are like cheaper things available, but they're not as good quality. But yeah, if you want a good quality tool, like a whatever DeWalt or whatever, you're paying in dollars, in US dollars.
Yeah. And I know as somebody who earns US dollars that that's still really expensive when
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I just had I have been without a planer for over 3 years because I had one that I had bought off of um somebody's like estate sale, when their husband passed away and like was selling all of his tools. Like I had bought one for a very reasonable price off of that, but it was old and it, needed work and I didn't put the work into it and so it broke. And so I've been without one for 3 years and I've been making do where I can. Um, but I was like waiting. I finally just like got like a really, paid for a really big project. And I was like, okay, this is what this money is going to go to, is to buying a new one. And I still, it's not like I didn't even buy like a top of the line, one,
Yeah.
but it still was a lot of money. And so I can't imagine
I
like
mean,
not making US dollars to even
yeah.
save up.
It's always, I think, yeah, it's always going to be a struggle. Like investing in tools. Tools are expensive.
Yep.
Clamps, man. I've been working with like 8 clamps for the past few years, and we got the fundraiser, and we wanted, I had this imagination that we were going to be able to buy like tons of clamps, and I think we bought like 10 new clamps through the fundraiser. And we bought a ton of other stuff, like we've been funneling money into other stuff, but it's just like clamps are so expensive. If you want a good clamp, you're gonna pay like $100. I don't know, like I don't know. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. It's like for a 24-inch clamp, it's like 36 US dollars. I'm like, that's more than $1 an inch.
Yeah. And it's so you're like, maybe it's worth it, but
yeah, but
I need like 10 of those things.
Yes. Yes.
One's not enough. I need 10.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I definitely feel you on the clamp pain too.
Yeah.
It is one of the, I mean, and it is the joke in the woodworking world of like, you can never have enough clamps. Like that's the one thing you can like continue to buy until the day you die and you still won't have enough. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I have some thoughts in my head that I'll talk to you about after we're done recording about tools and clamps. But I want to, what do you hope for? You said you were looking at grants and stuff as like other possible ways of like helping to fund. Like what's the dream once you have, fully built, fully stocked workshop? What's kind of the dream?
The dream.
Mm-hmm.
The dream, I guess, would be to be able to offer workshops, to offer consistent workshops. Like right now, I'm giving, like I said, I'm giving a weekly workshop in a different space, and I really, like weekend workshops are great as well.
Yep.
But I really like to be able to offer this space of like consistent learning and being able to accompany people in their projects and what they want to build. So that's definitely part of the dream. And I guess dedicating more time to art and building what I really want to build and kind of being able to create more like bespoke pieces of furniture. That's definitely part of the dream.
Sure. I truly hope that happens for you. Yeah. I also understand that struggle too.
Yeah.
You have to
take a slow burner, but
you have to take the work that pays first. But you always need to try to sneak in some work that like feeds your soul just for just for feeding your own creative
Absolutely.
So I want to give you a chance to let people know like how they can find you guys on Instagram, and then if you want to talk a little bit to how they can find the fundraiser.
Okay. So you can find us on Instagram. We are Polilla.cooperativa. I think you can find us as well on Facebook, the same name.
Okay.
But we are kind of more active on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And on our main page of Polilla Cooperativa, there is a link to our fundraiser.
Okay. Excellent.
That we are using. Well, the money that was donated in the past year has gone towards building up our workshop, but money donated from now on would go to the next phase of the project, which is giving workshops.
Okay, awesome. And do you know how much you have left to raise?
To raise, I think we asked for like 7,000 British pounds.
Okay.
I think we made it about halfway, which is amazing. Like, really, I'm very grateful for everything we've achieved. If I look back on where we were a year ago and where we are now, it's incredible. But we are about halfway. I think the fundraising page doesn't reflect the full amount that we received, because we did receive a few direct donations. So yeah, it's about halfway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with me this morning.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking us.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. I've followed you guys for a little while now, so I'm glad we finally made this work.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so again, that was Rosi of Polilla Cooperative. I include the links on how you can follow along with them on Instagram, as well as a link to help support and get the cooperative going. You can find those in the show notes, and the best places to find that is in the description for the episode on your podcast app. If you're watching this on the Freeman Furnishings YouTube channel, check the description box down below. Or you can head on over to freemanfurnishings.com/podcast and find the show notes for today's episode, as well as all the past episodes. Be sure to follow along with the podcast on Instagram at Crafting a Revolution. And the link in the bio there will give you a perfect place on finding out how you can support the podcast if you are enjoying it. There's a link that goes straight to Patreon, which is a monthly ongoing donation for the podcast. And then there is a link that will take you where you can donate just a one-time donation. And if you can't support the podcast monetarily, but still want to show some love, as always, please share about the podcast at Crafting Revolution all across Instagram. While you're there, you can come say hey to me, Katie Freeman, at Freeman Furnishings. Or you can say hi to the co-host, Katie Thompson, over at Women of Woodworking or Pen and Chisel. Either one of those, both passion projects for her. So go over there and say hi. This is one of 2 new episodes for the week. So we have one more coming at you at the end of the week. In the meantime, as always, let's go craft a revolution. She, her, them, they got something they want to say. Solution for the toxic masculinity.